Backwoods University. Today's class is going to be on tracks, and game sign. I'm extremely blessed and fortunate to know some outstanding outdoorsmen, outstanding hunters, trappers, fishermen. And one of them has agreed to help me today with the class on sign. His name is Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark, and a little bit about myself. For years I ran a trap line from back when I was around 11 years old up into my mid-20s. And when I was a young lad, I used to follow my dad around grouse hunting. Eventually I was able to carry a gun and hunt with him in the snow. And I must have drove him nuts because all I wanted to do is follow tracks, find a set of red fox tracks, and boy, I would get so sidetracked, my dad would call me over. What'd you find, another set of tracks, Mark? Yep. He'd reel me back in, and so that's pretty much how the passion all began. One thing that's always exciting about tracks is, particularly in the snow, is there's a clean slate from time to time of fresh snow, and it can reveal a lot about the species, what they're doing, where they're going, and how long ago they've been there. Sometimes that's not always as easy as you'd think. There's been times where I've seen a fresh track in the mud. I know it's fresh because it rained like cats and dogs the day before, and so everything was clean. There's that beautiful track. You go there 3-4 days later with a buddy, and he goes, "Hey, there's a fresh track." I said, "Yeah, you would think it was, but it's 5 days old." And so there's clues that can help reveal, even in that situation, if it truly is fresh, such as maybe a little bit of a splatter of wetness on the leaves from when it went through the wet spot and it's not dried on the leaves yet. That can tell you if the water is muddy still in the track. And sometimes it's good just to compare your own footprints and disturbance to what's going on at the time. Direction, a lot of people get goofed up with direction in powdery snow. They know that's a deer or they know it's a coyote by the pattern, but if it's a straight line pattern, which way is he going, north or south, east or west? So the way to determine that is they usually slide into their footstep, and so it cuts underneath. So the front part is like a little bit of a ledge there overhanging, whereas the backside it slides in and then they lift up. So that's always a good clue. One other thing about determining the freshness of the tracks would be if you can remember the weather conditions for the past 5 to 7 days. That'll tell you if there was really good drying conditions, that track may have hardened up and you really don't know. Whereas and with regards to snow, if you had some fresh snow in the morning, you know it's a clean slate. It had to be fresh. So those are variables, rain and freezing. Sometimes you'll have a wet snow. It's a little bit above freezing today. So tracks look fresh. However, tomorrow morning they might be frozen solid and still look as fresh as ever, but they're frozen solid. So those are all things to consider. Once in a while, if you're lucky enough, you'll find some turkey scratchings. You might say, well, they're fresh because it rained yesterday, or there's snow that's here today that wasn't here yesterday, but which way are they going? It's really difficult when it's just leaves. So if you look at the way the leaf scratch is piled, that will tell you the direction that the flock is moving because they kick back as such. So that'll help you to get on top of them a little quicker. Sometimes in really deep snow, you're just not going to see those claws, the pads, but if you're lucky, you'll see a pattern to the tracks. Now, there's different patterns, which we're going to show you in a few minutes. The straight line pattern, which is more like a fox or a coyote. Then there's boxy patterns, and there's zigzaggy patterns, the sidewinder, weasel type patterns. If you can distinguish that gives you the advantage of, it narrows down the field of what you're looking for. And from then, you want to follow that track for a ways to confirm that, yes, indeed, that is the pattern, because they change the way they walk depending on whether they're galloping, trotting, stalking. So you want to confirm that, and if you're lucky, short ways down the trail, it might be a little more windswept, a little shallower depth of snow, and you might actually see the front paw, the rear paw, and then you know it's okay, that is a coyote, or that is a fisher or whatnot. So there's little clues that you can look for when you're halfway stumped, and one of which would be if the animal tracks are going in or out of the water, that will narrow down the field. And the next one would be if the critter climbs a tree, you know, okay, it's a tree climbing animal. If you're lucky, you might find some droppings along the way. If they're hunting, you could notice, okay, they're going into those rabbit briars. Then you'll know it's a predator, and it could be very likely like a fox or a coyote, something like that, maybe a fisher. One thing that it's an oddity, I'm just going to mention it here, and it's the possum track. Sometimes people get faked out. A possum, the toes kind of look like a raccoon, but the possum has a thumbprint that is like 90 degrees. It really sticks out, where the raccoon would have the paw like so, where the possum is way out. And remind me, Brian, we'll do a track over there like a possum track in the snow. All of these things you can look up online. And so if you're really stumped and you're out there and you really want to know what that track is, take a picture with your phone, take a short video to get the track, the pattern of it. Go back and you can look online for tracks in the snow. There's beautiful pictures all over the place. And if you're still stumped, you might have been fortunate enough that you may have stumbled upon the legendary chupacabra. So keep that in mind. Okay, this particular handmade tracks here would be the straight line track, and that would be something like a coyote or a fox, generally in a pretty straight line. Occasionally deer can, for a short burst, they can walk in a straight line if they're going through the woods, and so just keep that in mind. It's always good to follow them for a while. So this would be a straight line, and what I mentioned before, if a track is kind of undermined like that, that would be the front. That's the direction it's going, because you're not always going to see those claws, and so that would be the direction when it's undermined in the front like that. The next one here would be like a zigzaggy pattern, and that would be something, a possum or something, a raccoon. Next one here would be like a boxy square, somewhat square pattern. That's a squirrel, red squirrel, gray squirrel, a little bit narrower in the back. And a lot of people get faked out because occasionally they'll maybe have one track back a little bit just for a couple hops. Say, oh, maybe that's a small rabbit. And the same with the next one, which is a rabbit style, where they'll have the two in the front and then two following. And sometimes they will also look like a squirrel track just for a couple of hops. So it's good to always follow up on that. Next one here, a lot of people get faked out by, this would be like, I call it a sidewinder pattern. The skunks, the weasels, even the fisher, when they're on that certain speed, you'll notice that. Although they'll combine, there'll just be 3 tracks because they'll combine the front and the back together. But if you notice that they're parallel, but they're kind of on an angle, those are more the weasel family. Okay, this would be like a bird type, and you can tell the direction they're going, the way their toes are. Funny story, when I was a kid, when my brother was old enough to go hunting with me and my dad, he found a set of grouse tracks. He goes, I got some fresh ones, you guys. Hey, which way are they walking? Just follow the arrow? Well, this would be the arrow he was talking about, but they're actually going the opposite direction where the way the toes are pointing. So we tease them to this day about that. Dan, don't get mad. Sometimes you'll have a set of tracks that have a tail drag, so that's a clue. Could be like a possum or a muskrat. If it's a real wide tail, then of course it'd be a beaver. And then the one other track, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, it's a bird track, but it has a line across the front that would indicate that it's a webbed foot, like a duck or a goose or something like that. So although the toes are apparent, you got to watch for that little bit of webbing there, which shows that it's a water swimming bird. Looks like they had a little bit of a gathering out here on the pond. Coyotes and bear. So a few other things which indicate animal wildlife sign would be, of course, a hole in the ground. And the size of the hole would give you a clue of how big the animal is. And same with a hollow tree. It's all clawed up. The bark's all clawed up. You could see maybe it could be squirrels, it could be raccoons, something like that that's going in there. Sometimes I didn't mention this before, but if you're following some tracks and you just can't figure it out, if you see the type of food that they're going to eat, that can give you a clue whether they're going for apples or they're going for cattail roots, whether they're going for the bark of a tree. If they're eating the way up on a pine tree, the bark, have any idea what that would be? Porcupine. So these are all different signs that you see. The top of a spruce tree is all chewed up. That would be a porcupine. There's different things like slides, otter slides, where they go up the bank and they slide down. Beaver, it almost looks like an otter slide where they're going up a bank, grabbing some branches, dragging back down into the water where they can safely eat them. those are indications of different types of sign. It just goes on and on. The more you know about the animal itself, the more likely you are to identify in a pinch what it is in a short amount of time.
Appreciate you stopping by. I know everybody in the class appreciated you stopping by. That's a beginning, and I'm hoping that Mark stops by more often and we can do some species-specific videos. There's just so much to jam in one video, so this was a beginning point, and hopefully it piques some people's interest. Get out there and check things out. Take a walk in the woods. It's a lot of fun. So until next time, everybody, thanks for watching. Take care. And Mark, thank you.